In Baltimore and around the country, there are calls for police reform. Some proposed solutions include body cameras, better training, and stricter use of force policies.
The one idea often overlooked is increasing the number of women police officers, and in fact, some critics call the shortage of women officers a public safety crisis.
Denise Koch decided to investigate how women in policing could make for a better department.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Roll call at the city's southeastern district with Captain Donita Boyd.
Have a great day.
Is there anything that a male officer can do that a woman cannot do?
Of course not. I think that women add a different perspective to getting it done. So if force is needed, then a woman is going to use the force. But before she uses force, she's going to use everything else that she has available to her.
Captain Boyd's opinion, formed during her 27 years with the department, is backed up by study after study.
Just don't give up.
Women are less likely to use aggressive tactics when struggling with a suspect, and women are less likely to fire a weapon on duty.
A lot of our female officers often have the ability to really empathize and over-communicate, which often helps with de-escalation. The majority of this job isn't, chasing people and constant adrenaline rushes.
Are you enjoying distance learning?
In fact, an estimated 80% of the job of policing involves people skills, what some call emotional intelligence, a quality often recognized in female officers.
The toughest moments are situations that involve children. You'll go out and you'll just hug a kid and let them cry on you and cry with them. And that doesn't fix the situation. It doesn't fix the situation, but it lets them know that someone cares.
Is that part of the job of a police officer?
Yes, it's just who I am. And it's who I want the officers that work with me and for me to be.
We're less of the hammer. That doesn't mean that we're less effective in our response. What that means is we use a different skill level, we use a different thought process.
Colonel Cherie Briscoe is the highest-ranking female officer in the BPD. The skills she cites can often translate into savings for police departments.
Statistically speaking, women have fewer complaints. We have fewer uses of force. We have fewer investigations that we are the defendant, if you will, in those cases.
Indeed, last year, out of 171 complaints, only 19 involve female officers. There are fewer women on the force, but the numbers still show statistically fewer complaints. At the same time, the department launched a diversity campaign to attract more women.
I know people need to trust in us.
Officer Ana Quinones walks the beat in Baltimore's Hispanic community. She is one of a number of female officers featured in the campaign.
I always tell people that being a police officer will show you who you really are.
When we look at even traditional recruiting, we haven't always, as a profession, done a very good job making it very clear that this is a profession for everyone.
How many women were in the academy when you were there?
When I was in my academy class back in 1997, there were 4 of us.
And how many men?
I think close to 40.
Chief Hyatt is proud that the Baltimore County Police Department is now 17% female, Baltimore City 18%. But the national average is only 13%. And one Justice Department researcher says to change the traditionally masculine climate, the number needs to be closer to 30%.
Having 30% of women would be more than the climate. It'll be policing change, period.
Colonel Briscoe was among the officers taking a knee at City Hall during last June's protests and demands for police reform.
I'm a woman of color. I'm from Baltimore. And though I'm a police, I fundamentally understand the national conversation.
If the studies done over the last 40 years are right, and female officers are better at defusing potentially violent confrontations before they become deadly, we can't help asking, shouldn't the goal of every department be to increase their numbers?
You have obviously risen through the ranks and are doing extraordinarily well. Were you welcomed?
I can't always say I was welcomed. And I don't take that personally, but no, wasn't always welcomed. Not always welcome, but once we hit that door, watch out.
I do want to say before we start talking, Lynn, that obviously no one that I interviewed is saying that women make better police officers than men. That is not the issue here. All the point is that they're different, that they police differently, and they have different responses to situations that could be helpful in departments.
It was so fascinating, Denise, and I told you with Captain Boyd, for example, you can see that empathy and emotional intelligence in her interview with you.
Yeah, and I think it's just the difference between men and women. We are different. We I probably approach every profession differently with our strengths and our weaknesses. And the point here is that it may be that this sort of traditionally masculine environment that relied a lot on force, we need to rethink some of that now, given the tensions that are existing between communities and police departments, and and the fact that it's 2020 and we can continue to rethink how we do all kinds of professions.
And there are some different ways, right, for them to recruit more women to join the police force.
Right. Traditionally, they have recruited for police departments from the military, where you tend to get more men, obviously, responding. And a lot of people who come from the military are interested in SWAT teams and interested, in the force aspect of policing, which is absolutely part of policing. But now the call is perhaps we should recruit from nursing, teaching, professions that are traditionally female professions. And you might get more women to think, yeah, that is something I want to do. They said that traditionally when they survey, women go into policing because they want to serve, men go into policing because they want to take control and keep the peace. So it's a different impulse that gets them there in the beginning.
Okay, hopefully we can get closer to that 30% that you talked about.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Thank you, Denise. It was
thank you.
Such an interesting story. We'll be right back after this with news, weather, and traffic.